Cassian Andor has found peace, but how long can peace last in a galaxy ruled by fear? Episode 7 of Andor Season 2 isn't just about the next mission, it's about fate, resistance, and the moment you realize the war has already begun. We're now 2 years out from the Battle of Yavin. The rebellion is growing, piecemeal, chaotic, and increasingly dangerous. Cassian is laying low, Yavin IV is becoming a command center, and the people of Gorman are on the brink of something terrible. This episode quietly moves key pieces into position while revealing just how fragile peace really is. Let's start with Cassian and Bix. They're living a quiet life in a small circular hut, a powerful visual choice. Circular shapes dominate their home from the doorway to the hammock posts. It's a soft contrast to the hard, angular architecture of the Empire. Cassian's house literally wraps around nature. It doesn't destroy it. That's Star Wars Symbolism 101. The Empire imposes, the rebellion adapts. And Cassian is still wounded physically and emotionally from his past missions. But this episode introduced something unexpected, a Force-sensitive healer. She's not a Jedi, she's not even trained, but like we've seen in The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker, she uses Force healing, a power long established in Legends and subtly referenced in Heir to the Empire. She senses something powerful in Cassian, something coming. This is where the show flirts with a big idea. Is the Force choosing Cassian? She says,
"They're gathering as they go. There's a purpose to it."
Cassian resists the idea just like Han Solo once did.
Hey, it's me.
But we know where his path leads, to Scarif, to Leia, to the spark that saves the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Yavin IV, we get our closest look yet at the growing Rebel Alliance. The show ties directly into Star Wars Rebels, especially Seasons 3 and 4, when Yavin becomes a staging ground for various cells. X-Wings and Y-Wings sit idle, ready, and Commander Draven, first seen in Rogue One, makes an appearance, laying the groundwork for the more militarized rebellion we'll see later. And then there's Wilmon, the young mechanic whose arc has been quietly building since Season 1. His transformation from a grieving son to Saw Gerrera-trained operative mirrors the darker evolution of the rebellion. Saw's teachings leave a mark. His recruits become blunt instruments, filled with rage and clarity. You can see it in Wilmon's eyes, and Cassian notices it too. And this episode draws stark contrasts. Yavin IV feels alive, recruits are optimistic, commanders argue strategy, and rebels sit together at mess tables. Always in groups, always eye contact. Gorman, by contrast, is filled with dread. Streets are quiet, civilians are scattered, the camera frames everything with negative space and shadow. Even the Empire's uniforms reflect this. Their polished, soulless look isolates them visually from the communities they oppress. And for all the peace Cassian thinks he's found, the galaxy won't let him stay hidden. So what do you think? Should Cassian believe in the Force, or is he right to resist it? This healer says he's special. Bix has had Force-related dreams, but isn't Cassian supposed to represent the everyman, the rebel without prophecy? Or is the Force quietly guiding everyone, even those who don't believe? The Gorman Massacre isn't just a footnote in Star Wars history anymore, it's a full-blown tragedy that reshapes the galaxy. Episode 8 of Andor Season 2 is devastating, powerful, and one of the most brutal things we've ever seen in Star Wars, but it's also one of the most important. This episode, titled, "Who Are You?", finally shows us the event Mon Mothma uses to rally the rebellion, the Empire's massacre of peaceful protesters on Gorman. We've heard about it before, but seeing it unfold with all the build-up, manipulation, and horror hits different now. This wasn't just about silencing a planet, this was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Resistance will be crushed. From the opening frame, the vibe is different. Gorman feels quiet, a little too quiet. Imperial forces remove barricades and let the people flow into the plaza. Not because they've backed down, but because they're baiting a trap. The square becomes a kill box. The exits are sealed, and the Empire unleashes a level of cruelty that feels chillingly real. And the worst part, it works. The Empire frames the Gormans as aggressors. The news blames the protesters. The spin begins immediately. Cassian Andor and Syril Karn mirror each other again. Two men radicalized in opposite directions. Syril believes in structure, in order, in the promise of the Empire. But when he finally confronts Cassian, the man he's been chasing since Season 1, Cassian doesn't even recognize him. The question,
"Who are you?"
isn't just a jab. It's an existential blow. Syril realizes he means nothing to the person he's made his whole life about. And in a moment of despair, he's shot and killed by rebel leader Karo Rylance, putting a sad bow on Syril's life. I thought he was going to come around. I thought they might have something to say, but Nope, it just seems like his entire life was a waste. Tony Gilroy doesn't hold back here. The Empire doesn't just murder people, they erase them. The way this episode uses silence, the shape of Gorman's architecture, the fear in the crowd, it all feels heartbreakingly real. Rylance says it best.
You've destroyed us.
We also see the KX droids, the same model as K2SO, used for brutal crowd suppression. One of them kills a civilian by simply lifting and slamming her like she's nothing. It's terrifying, and it's supposed to be. And this episode has a ton of lore and trivia baked into it. We see the TIE Avenger, Cassian's escape, includes the first ever live action appearance of the TIE Avenger, a ship originally from the Star Wars TIE Fighter game. And then we have architectural symbolism. Gorman's spiderweb aesthetic mirrors their cultural identity. Their buildings look woven, curved, and natural. While Imperial structures are rigid, brutalist, and harsh, it's visual storytelling at its best. The massacre draws clear inspiration from real-world tragedies like the Kent State shootings and colonial violence in Algeria and Vietnam. The Empire manipulates the narrative, creates a threat, and then uses it to justify annihilation. Tony Gilroy has said in interviews that Gorman was designed to show how fascism creeps in, not with a bang, but with paperwork, propaganda, and fear. Our girl Deirdre Miro, once cold and calculating, is now broken. After being choked by Cyril during the chaos, her trauma resurfaces, and she's left gasping for air both literally and metaphorically. Cassian, meanwhile, escapes, but the loss is huge, and even the rebels are shaken. Storm the sky, they chant, a callback to the funeral scene from Season 1. But now, it's not defiance, it's mourning. This is the massacre Mon Mothma references in Star Wars Rebels. It's the moment that pushes her to speak out in the Senate and fully commit to the Rebel Alliance. And now, thanks to Andor, we understand the cost, not just in lives, but in hope. Andor doesn't just tell us about rebellion. It shows us why rebellion is necessary. Episode 8 is gut-wrenching, yes, but it's also essential. It proves that Star Wars can be more than space battles and lightsabers. It can be a mirror to our own world and a warning. The rebellion has a voice now, and that voice belongs to Mon Mothma. In episode 9 of Andor Season 2, we move from outrage to action, from grief to defiance. If episode 8 was the gut punch, episode 9 is the breath we take before standing back up. We begin with the voices of the Gormans still echoing, literally. The anthem they sang before the massacre plays once more. It's a dirge, it's a warning. It's a cry to the galaxy, and while they sing, we shift to Coruscant. The Senate building reflects upside down in rain, a beautiful metaphor because the Senate itself has been turned on its head. No longer a voice for the people, just a puppet for Palpatine. Inside, Mon Mothma prepares to do the unthinkable, speak the truth publicly. But this isn't just a speech, it's a transformation. She's no longer a cautious senator. She's stepping into her role as the face of the rebellion. She names the Emperor, names the atrocity, names the silence as complicity. The speech is the same one referenced in Star Wars Rebels, but here it lands harder because we've seen the cost. We felt the Gorman Massacre. Meanwhile, Cassian is fraying. The massacre shook him. The Force healer's words still haunt him. There's someplace he needs to be. But Cassian doesn't believe in fate. He believes in doing what must be done. And so he acts, rescuing Mon Mothma from an Imperial ambush, risking his life without hesitation. And you know, it's so crazy to think about. We saw Rogue One, how much he was responsible for rescuing the Death Star plans, which goes on to lead the rebellion. But here, we get even more of what he's done. Rescuing Mon Mothma, this is like the rescuing of Grogu, like we saw in Chapter 20 of The Mandalorian, The Foundling. This was as big as Grogu getting rescued, and how important Kelleran Beck is now to Star Wars canon and history. Now, Cassian Andor is even that much more important because he rescued Mon Mothma. He is responsible for her living and continuing to fight with the rebellion and to lead them. So this is pretty big. It's a quiet, elegant rescue, one that shows how far he's come, from reluctant smuggler to determined soldier. Back on Yavin IV, pieces are locking into place. Vel is arming new recruits. Erskine reveals he's been working for Luthen all along, and Luthen and Mon Mothma finally lay all their cards on the table. Their argument is one of the best scenes of the season. She calls him out for his ruthless tactics. He reminds her that revolutions aren't clean, and he tells her what we've suspected all along.
I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy.
There's a moment of eerie poetry here as Mon finishes her speech. Lights dim in the Senate chamber, one by one. The last light of democracy is fading, but outside the chamber, the fire of rebellion is burning brighter. And then there's Bix. She makes a choice here. She leaves Cassian. not out of fear, but out of faith. Faith that he has a greater role to play. The final scene shows K2SO waking up. It's not triumphant, it's Frankenstein, cold, clinical, and electric, but it signals the future. The Cassian we met in Rogue One is almost here. So what do you think? Does this episode mark Mon Mothma as the true leader of the rebellion, or is she still playing politics? These 3 episodes show us that rebellion isn't clean. It's messy, painful, and deeply human. We've seen entire worlds like Gorman burn. We've watched Mon Mothma finally cross the line from politician to revolutionary, and we've witnessed Cassian Andor pulled further into a war that's no longer optional. Whether Cassian is being shaped by his choices or by the will of the Force, that's up for debate. But one thing's clear, something greater is guiding him toward his purpose. And next week, it all comes to a head. The final arc of Andor Season 2 will take us right to the doorstep of Rogue One. And if these last episodes are any indication, we're in for something unforgettable. Make sure you're subscribed and locked in, because we would be honored if you would join us.